Shalom. And that is the only Hebrew I know, so the rest of this is going to be in English. Sorry. So why did we move forward? I don't know. All right, let's try that again. So I'm Brian. I'm a production engineer. I work with the monitoring team at Facebook. And in the grand tradition of lightning talks, we're going to talk about something cool we did. So basically, we're going to go, there we go. Sorry, this is a PDF, and usually I need my speaker's notes, so I'm using my phone, and that'll mean that you get the fun version. So to start us off, why is this something we care about? So this is a period of a couple of years where we grew about 2.5x, and this happens repeatedly over the course of our monitoring system. So this is sort of our challenge, which is that like we grow a lot over and over and over again, and in fact at this point we are at 26 trillion data points a day. So it's not a like insignificant amount of data that we deal with. And this is just for like all sorts of reasons. There's new services being turned up, new engineers being hired that want new metrics. It grows pretty fast. We're adding new metrics to existing ones too. So we kind of looked at this line, we're like, well, what does it look like if we kind of like push it out a little ways? And we went, I don't know if we really want to support that. It didn't take very long for us to realize that like our growth curve was pretty unsustainable. And then when we started to look into like what was causing the growth, we realized that there was like a number of different things that were causing it. But first, we wanted to know like maybe we could just like store less. And it turns out that like about 1% of our time series are actually ever queried. So we have like sort of like 99% overhead. But this is also part of the challenge because this is monitoring data, and that means that you can't actually like throw it away. Since you never know when you're actually going to need some of these metrics, you have to keep all of it anyways. So that kind of, the idea, well, maybe we could just store less was kind of out the window. And so like even per host data for us is still valuable since even a single Webby can cause interesting problems. Some of the data is not very useful though. One of these metrics tracks cache hit rate by country, and the other two are just totally random numbers. They're a hash of something and we have no idea what it means. It's just in there. And the massive cardinality like harms our data stores. Like the more diverse metrics we have to store, the more memory it takes for us. So at Facebook, we try to kind of like let people do their job and not get in their way. Oh, sorry. And that means that like in order to write data into our metric system, ODS, there's no upfront registration. There's no, like, you don't have to check in with anyone. You can just like add a line of code to your application and start sending a new metric from like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of machines. And we kind of just have to like deal with it. And we do this because we want people to use the monitoring system. Monitoring is good. That's why we're all here to talk about monitoring, right? And that means that it should be as low friction as possible in order to like get metrics into the system and start using them. We don't want to penalize people for doing the right thing. So our goals are basically to like track the resources per team, so that when you send data to us, we kind of just ask like, hey, just like also include your team name so we can kind of like go talk to you if you actually are causing a problem. And then each team has a set of limits now, and these limits are like very, very high. They actually only affect sort of like the top users of the system, like the very, very big systems like the newsfeed systems. And then the rest of the teams are basically unaffected by this. It's also very low friction. If you wind up hitting your limits, we don't actually require that we're involved. There's just a simple UI where you can go, I hit my limit, I need more, and then we'll come talk to you later if it's a problem for us. But even this stuff wasn't enough in the end, because it turned out that like even aggregating by teams could still do kind of like silly things sometimes. They would like add a new metric and not like pay attention to how many servers it was going to run on, or maybe they'd like add a new sort of like aggregation tag or something like that to their system, and we'd wind up with like suddenly millions of new metrics entering our system all at once, and that's like pretty bad for us. So we built a clustering algorithm that looks at all of the new time series coming into our database and attempts to identify commonalities and then automatically build a regex for us. It shows us like samples of like some of the data. That's sort of the samples column there in yellow. So it shows us samples of some of the data coming into the system, so we can kind of like eyeball the regex and go, yeah, that looks about right. And if it is causing a problem for us, then we can blacklist it with one click and file a task with another click. And that way we can start a discussion about like how badly you need these metrics, since it is always an option to add more hardware to support more needs if we have to. So, remember this chart? This was a scary, scary chart. We launched the tool in October of last year, and we are 60% less than our projection and 20% less data in the system overall. This was like pretty unbelievable. So we managed to do it without any extra friction for legitimate users and only like fairly moderate friction for users that like wound up tripping the system. Thank you.